Yeah. You're listening to Autodesk's Digital Builder Podcast, a show that inspires construction professionals to innovate and use technology to improve how they build our world. I'm Eric Thomas, and I've been working in construction for nearly a decade. And now I have the privilege to sit down with industry trailblazers to hear how they're solving construction's biggest challenges and redefining the future of the built environment. All right, welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. Today we are coming once again live from Autodesk University. It is the second day of the event, and I'm very excited to be joined by Andrew Pangallo, a construction digital delivery lead at INDOT, and Kelly Barber, an engineering, automation, and services division lead at PennDOT. So how are you both doing today? I'm excited to get into all things DOT and, lift the curtain behind, what you're up to and what you're working on.
We're excited to be here. It's both of our first AUs. Excited to be here and be able to share what we do at Department of Transportation.
Yeah, thank you so much. And how are you doing today? You feeling good?
I'm feeling good. Like Kelly said, this is the first time for me as well, but just kind of honored and they'd have us on this podcast to give us that platform that the DOTs don't always get and deserve. So appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always great to get behind the scenes and see what you're doing with technology and all these choices that lead into it. So let's dive straight into this, big innovation conversation that we're going to have today. And Andrew, my first question is for you. For those who might not be familiar, tell me, what exactly is the role or function of Department of Transportation, more commonly known as a DOT? Give us that baseline that we can build on today.
Well, that's a very, very broad topic of what a DOT provides, but to put it simply, we are stewards and servants of the public infrastructure, responsible and expected to deliver a safe roadway for everybody, of all the customers and the people that live in our communities. We hold ourselves up that high expectation to make sure and ensure that those roads and bridges are safe and flow to the expectations that we are held up to. So we take that pretty seriously, and it starts even with the projects that we developed to get there. It's a very complicated scoping process to decide when and where to work and then how to deliver those. So, I don't think the public knows all the inner workings enough, but, they shouldn't have to. And as I put it on us as responsible to have that, to ensure that we are properly using the taxpayer money to deliver that expectation.
It makes a bunch of sense. And the scope of what you're all working on is so immense. This is a weird side tangent, but I went on a date with somebody once and she told me the number of bridges they considered bridges in California. And I didn't consider like overpasses as bridges and all this stuff. And she's like, it's thousands. And all of these require constant maintenance and upkeep and everything. And so there wasn't a second date, and that's okay. But I did learn that factoid that I got to bring to this conversation. So, I think that's okay. Kelly, anything else to add to, what Andrew shared as far as the function of DOTs?
Sure. So I'll give you that little toggle. A little over 25,000 structures within Pennsylvania that we're responsible for.
That's
and over
it?
40. That's it. Just a little number, and over 40,000 miles, roadway miles that we're responsible for. But the key part, I think, in addition to what Andrew was saying, it really is to get people and goods safe from point A to point B, whether it's rail freight, highways, bridges, however they're going to get there. Whatever mode of transportation is, make sure they get there safely.
I appreciate that level set. And it's a lot more focused than my ramble about going on a date and talking about bridges. But I think it's a really important level set just so folks know the scope and scale of everything you touch, and also what you shared, Andrew, as far as, serving the best interests of the public. I feel, even those of us working in construction, sometimes you can roll up on a project and be like, I'm going to get stuck here. But, the intention and the plans are always with good intent. And I appreciate you setting that baseline for us today. So let's get a little bit deeper into that complexity. And Kelly, I've got a question that I'm going to send your way first. Considering the size and complexity of these organizations, as you've, astutely pointed out, I'd like to hear a bit more about where your team fits in, within INDOT and PennDOT. So both of you, I'm going to ask you this question, but tell me more about your teams and your roles.
Sure. So the Engineering Automation Services Division, we're under our Highway Administration Deputate. So we service specifically our area, design and construction for highways and bridges. The way the department is set up, there is a multimodal deputate. So that is more rail freight, ports, things of that nature under that side of things. So within Engineering Automation and Services Division, we have photogrammetry and surveys, we have CAD. So we're rolling out, different opportunities for individuals. We have construction services, we have our UAS program, augmented reality. I can keep on going. We've got a lot going on in innovations within the EASD environment, and then all of our legacy systems on top of that. So we are the services, and we are out there also setting the standard for the department moving forward with our districts. That's the key part.
Okay.
We have 11 engineering districts, so we work with them to be able to be successful.
I appreciate the scope and scale there, and I think you've already started touching that innovation arm that I'm excited to talk about today, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about just how you're able to push the envelope within the DOTs. But Andrew, I'd love to hear a little bit about your team and what you're focused on as well, and how that contrasts to what she just shared.
It does contrast a bit. Kelly's team, I think, definitely further ahead in the innovation department, but I think what INOT has shown, and from leaders such as Pennsylvania DOT and some of the other ones here, is that it's worth the investment. So it wasn't just a couple months ago that I am a team of one now, and this kind of innovation and construction to bring technology into all of our processes and reimagine, rethink that the way of doing business. This kind of proof of concept, this position in itself was created because of kind of the success in my previous role, the major projects construction manager role. We were on a large $2 billion corridor that was using legacy software, and so just we needed to adapt, and we started using newer tools and innovated on our own, and then that kind of the agency noticed that, so we saw the need, and that's what precipitated the investment. That we need to go further with this and hopefully learn from the other states ahead of us, such as Pennsylvania, and invest more.
I love hearing that too, and the ability to find those opportunities to bring that innovation in before you've gotten the full buy-in from the team. But you put in the hard work and you're starting to make those changes. But I think this leads into my next question, which I'm going to kick to you because I think you're well suited based on what you just shared to answer it. And I also want Kelly's thoughts too. Is a lot of folks probably have a perception that most public entities or DOTs are a bit behind the curve with regards to technology innovation. Like, I'm a former proposal manager from a federal contractor, and I think that's a little adjacent to the work that you're doing. But at that time, which is like a decade ago now, I'm feeling very old, we weren't given any runway to be innovative. It was just, this is the letter of the law with what you're allowed to adhere to, at least us as a GC. And they just didn't give us room to. And I'm really encouraged to see that's changing. So could you elaborate a little bit more about some of those innovative things that you've either started to do or aspiring to do in the near future? And then I'd love if you could compare and contrast that to the work that you're doing as well.
Yeah, so we started, it used to be just common legacy processes using email, using just regular folders to organize our data, but we decided to do the things that was asked of us on this $2 billion corridor. We had to adapt. We had to innovate. We only had a team so small, but it wasn't small, but I mean, comparatively speaking, and to be able to properly communicate effectively and collaborate, we needed to adapt. So, I think what we looked at those processes, and when you look closely at them and understood the why of those regulations that seemed to be strict, they really weren't. They didn't prescribe you must do it this way. So instead, we saw that, well, this tool, can still fulfill that need, but actually in an easier way. And so once we took a step back and kind of looked at our current regulations, and it really wasn't as complex as it looked, we made it complex by the legacy systems we used at the time. It worked. It was better than paper and all that. But we saw that, yeah, we can actually accomplish these steps with far less time. And with even with the same amount of people, it didn't feel that way. So we actually made it less complex, realizing what we needed to accomplish and why, and then let this technology make that easier on us. So it really wasn't as hard. And once people got past the being uncomfortable about it, being new, they embraced that change and said, oh, yeah, we need this tool to help us. We can now do things we couldn't before. So that is actually pretty easy sell. Like I said, a lot of kicking and screaming the first few months, but pretty quick buy-in after that.
Well, I'm encouraged to hear that. And I think it says a lot about the evolution of the technology in recent years as well, because it does fit into the processes in a way some of the older tools didn't do. And so I think as, this digital transformation continues to march forward, all different organization types, I think, are more empowered to explore these opportunities to be innovative. And I think, especially with the resource constraints that we're all beholden to, whether we're on the commercial side of things or a public entity or a DOT, the more we can be innovative in the technology we use, the more we allow our folks to get out there and just do the things that they're really excited about and passionate about. And, our infrastructure requires in the case of the organizations you work at. So Kelly, I'd love to hear your take on that conversation as well. Where does your organization sit?
So we have a state transportation innovation council, which really comprises of department staff, our Federal Highway Administration, our business partners, so contractors, consultants, universities, locals.
Okay.
They're all at the table. They're all very supportive of moving innovation forward for our projects. So we've been able to roll out a handful at the moment technologies, but we have a lot more coming that we plan to roll out here in the near future. But one of the more recent ones was e-ticketing. That is a big thing right now for DOTs, being able to roll out e-ticketing, streamlining that process, keeping our inspection staff away from the trucks to be able to gather that data, safety at the core with e-ticketing on that side. But we are always looking into the different avenues, and they are open and willing to let us try and test drive. With regulations, I would say it really is, we know what they are, and that's why everybody's at the table, so that if we are going down a path that we may not be able to go on, they will speak up and tell us, hey, just so you're aware, this could have an issue here, but let's work and see how this would work. We actually did a pilot. It's called virtual asphalt acceptance testing.
Okay.
And I will put the plug, 100% state contract, because we cannot do it for federal contracts. But it was using cameras within an asphalt plant to witness that hands-on local acceptance testing.
Really?
So I would say we are definitely at the forefront of trying to figure out how things can work and use the different innovations. And we definitely have the support of our executive team to continue to do that and move forward.
I'm encouraged to hear that in the number of stakeholders that you're bringing to the table for those conversations. I think that's the right approach. And I quoted John Fish when a couple days ago, and I'm going to do it again, the CEO of Suffolk Construction. And he said that the changes that the industry require in the coming years, none of this is one company's responsibility or one organization's responsibility. We all have to have a seat at that table. And it's really great to see that, your team is kind of leading that charge and bringing the right folks on to make sure that, the guardrails are set up to make sure that you're going to be successful. And somebody who could see a potential pitfall for a tech choice that you might make or a process deviation, they point that out and you can make that assessment if it's a risk that's acceptable to undertake. And then you move forward or you pick a different choice. But if you're just in a bubble in that conversation, I think it also introduces a lot of risk, but also probably prevents more innovative conversations from happening because you don't have people coming in and saying, here's all this cool stuff that I did at this different company or this different organization or this different entity that I'm working for today. So I love that answer. That's really cool to see. And it's cool to contrast what you're doing.
Yeah, I was going to add too. I think it's important too, as I kind of mentioned earlier, is in at least in this being the owner, that we are kind of should act as the servants. We should facilitate what makes other teams more successful. So really asking those questions to our contractors, building the jobs. What do you need from us? How can we change technology? How can what we give you from our designers help you do your job? What gaps are we missing? And I think a lot of times we in the past looked at culturally what's easiest for NDOT to do. And it's not about us. It shouldn't be, because we are those servants in that case. So find out from our industry partners what makes them do their job, because ultimately that is how everybody wins. So I think asking those questions is definitely the biggest step for us going forward.
I like that highlight of that mindset too. And it's a message that hopefully you can continue to get out, not just with your contractors that you're working with, but I'm sure the public would actually be interested in knowing that message too, because without the visibility, sometimes people are like, what's going on over here? And, people are willing to share, but, they might not know where they can get that information from. So it sounds like a really great feedback loop, for lack of a better descriptor, as far as how you're working with the different teams. So I appreciate that context. So let's talk a little bit more about the digitization journey that all of you are on right now. And Kelly, I'd love it if you could kick this question off. How has going more digital as your teams have progressed really changed the way that your teams are making decisions out in the field or in the trailer or in the office? Like how has this digital journey helped your teams just, make those choices?
Sure. So we started our e-construct efforts about 10 years ago. And one of the main things that we did was a collaboration center. And that is key. So it allows, the contractors, the department staff to be in a collaborative environment, have those conversations, have those documents go back and forth. There was a lot of paper in construction. I mean, we would joke, but you'd go out to a job trailer and the boxes would be stacked.
Oh, I remember.
When you go to finalize out that project. So how do you streamline those processes, make things more accessible to those that need to be able to have access to those documents. That has started, so it helps with the decision-making process and automating those workflows. But all of our inspection staff are issued iPads by having different mobile applications that we've developed. We have an amazing internal IT team. We have our own mobile dev team,
Really?
which I don't know how many DOTs can say that, but it's awesome that we have one, and they've been able to support our e-construct efforts. We say, hey, we have this idea. They sit down with us, industries at the table with us, and they work to develop it for us. We actually have our own e-ticketing application as well. So it's been kind of nice to be able to say, hey, we can do this ourselves. But it's also great to have support of those software providers as well. But again, it's not I need to go back to the job trailer to look at something, or let me go back to the truck to go find the specification book or the plan set. Everything is accessible at their fingertips. So decisions are able to be made quicker. And have those responses back a lot faster and document it so everyone's on the same page.
When you're not stuck in that silo anymore, I remember all too well the SharePoint folder of despair where you go, I need to find this Excel doc that has all the information for, the bid that I'm working on or whatever it might be. You go 19 folders deep and you open it up and you see V1, V2, V3 final, V4, V5, V8. And you're like, which one of these documents is accurate? And that just continues to snowball, especially when you're still sitting with such an incredibly large amount of paper on the project. So it's encouraging to hear that you're moving through that digital journey and, helping people make those decisions, because I think more and more often we're being asked, our field teams are being asked to make those choices in the moment more quickly and under more pressure, and being able to give them information to make that choice is huge. And I think a lot of the folks that they're listening are probably more in the general contractor space. I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, with the DOT, going back to the project trailer is a bit more of an ordeal depending on the project site you might be on. You're talking, I'm driving 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 miles to go back and find those plans or that document versus being able to, grab this trusty phone behind me and look up that information that you were looking for. So it's an absolute game changer, I think, especially at scale.
Yes, I agree.
Well, Andrew, how's that digital journey transpired for your organizations? How are they impacting your team's field choices?
Well, yeah, I think definitely what Kelly had said about how you have the information at your fingertips, very powerful. But I think what it also does is it enhances the partnering on a job. Lately Indiana has formed a kind of a three-legged stool, we call it, with design, construction, and the department. Called ITT, Indiana Transportation Team, and we talk about all these good concepts and things like that, and how to partner and all that. But we don't have a tool to facilitate it. And so what it does best here is it does facilitate that tool. It creates trust. It's a lot harder to do on these bigger jobs when we have hundreds of people working on this one job. It's so easy to lose trust when a communication link just fails. And so to be able to facilitate that collaboration, that communication from the office to the field seamlessly, there's a level of trust you create with that. It's very powerful. It truly does empower your field people. We always talk about empowering our field staff, but it's not real. There's a lot of trust we put in them, but we don't give them the tools to succeed. So to be able to do that, we get that trust reciprocated, and it does empower them. They do make those decisions where before they may not, because there's their fear, because there's that difficulty to communication of literally driving back to the field office. They don't have to do that anymore. They can trust that any decisions we make in the office, whether it be a construction change, a design change, they know that the most up-to-date plans, the best plan going forward is available at their fingertips in real time. And that you can't replicate that level of trust without technology. It just didn't exist before. There's a lot of things that didn't happen. There was mistakes made, for better or worse, but that hurt the team, and you lose trust over time, and it's hard to get that back. So to be able to establish that foundation, and it only gets stronger as the job goes, decisions get made that maybe didn't in the past, and that makes all the difference to deliver that job.
I love the trust focus that you're leaning in on here too, because you only get to make that first impression one time. And when you burn somebody, whether it's they don't have access to the information they needed, or they can't communicate, or you can't find something when you go back to it. I mean, look back even just a couple of years ago, our project comms were in email, they were in text messages, they were on paper, they were, fax machines. Like, where is it? Nobody knows. And to be able to, create this final handover package or just document everything that's done, the narrative has changed so much. it reduces so much time waste, and also all the rework that we're saving now, where people know I'm building off the plans that I am supposed to be building off because these are brand new. I got the new revisions. I'm not over in my, office slip sheeting and trying to change anything. That all goes away. And it adds such an element of certainty in addition to that trust that I appreciate that. And, as we continue to move into the cloud, I think the opportunities are really, impactful. I'm sure that comes with its own challenges, and we don't need to deep dive there, but, connectivity, internet access, all these other things. Like, I know Starlink is starting to become more of a conversation for job sites that are, in more of a remote area that don't have broadband. So there's all these multi-layered conversations I think we're all having right now, but we are moving in the right direction, and I'm really encouraged by it. So I appreciate you contrasting, how both of your organizations are thinking through that. So I want to think a little bit about how your experience with the Federal Highway Administration, or FHA's digital construction program, is. And so, Andrew, could you tell me a bit more about your experience with that program? And I'd love to hear what you're working on as well.
Recently, they gave us available grant money to invest in this, but I think it even goes back before that. Every day counts. You can go back as far as Every Day Counts 3, I think it was, that they've been supporting these initiatives. They're there to help you. They have funds available. It was kind of up to DOTs to leverage them, and I think, at least for NDOT, I could say that maybe we miss some opportunities, and that's in the past, and that's okay. But the key is, we are taking advantage of those now, and that support from them does mean a lot. That they're not going away. They see the value in this, and so to see that they have that level of trust, they know it'll work, and then therefore that passes to us. I think that makes us feel better about the decision. It's with their support, it's not kind of a leap of faith, right? They've talked it. They did a ton of research. The Resource Center does a lot of good work, talking to a lot of states. So they know they can back it. And then when they can offer that, and when funds are tight right now, we may be faced with a decision that, yeah, we'd like to use this, but we barely have enough money to do the program that they promised the public. So to get that extra resources to then help us deliver that with this technology really makes a difference. And it kind of makes or break it.
What's your experience been like in that realm?
So I would agree. I would say we've definitely have been very involved with the Everyday Counts programs, not only, sitting and listening to what the initiatives are, but being actively engaged on those committees. At the national level, we usually I know e-ticketing, digital as-built, UAS, we had, individuals at the table as part of this conversation. So the department has been very proactive on that side. And having that opportunity to get those funds, just kind of mimicking what Andrew said, it's nice to have those additional funds, because then we can say, hey, we want to try this. And by the way, Federal Highways is going to back us. And sometimes we have to provide a little bit of funds to match it, but sometimes they will cover it 100%. And that helps us be innovative, because we're able to go out and try those things, put them out on projects, give them a test drive and see if it makes sense. And then we can report it back to our other DOTs. And it's collaborating at the national level, which is great.
Yeah.
Because we can do things in silos individually as a DOT, but it's not helping everybody else that may, be interested in it and maybe not have the funding to do it. We can say, hey, this is how it works. These are our lessons learned. And then they can make the decisions if they want to do it or not. But we can at least share that information at the national level. And the peer exchanges have been fantastic with Federal Highways.
I love
being
that.
able to do that. So.
And it's nice to see that it's not like a competition between DOTs where it's like, we're shouldering out Montana, we're not interested, or, California, get out of here. Like that conversation and just that continuous improvement and knowledge sharing. It's one of my favorite things about the construction industry at large, is just folks are so passionate about building and the impact of the work that everybody's doing that they do want to share. They want to help other people innovate and bring this conversation forward, which actually leads into my next question very nicely. So thank you for setting me up for it.
Sure.
And Kelly, I'd like to hear, how are you balancing and supporting innovation in your teams while adhering to some of these standards and the requirements of your projects? I know it's difficult to, we're out here, we're building, like we have deadlines, we have schedules. How do you still focus on that continuous innovation conversation alongside the projects and the work you're doing?
They kind of go hand in hand. So we meet with our industry partners regularly. We talk about technology. They are at the table with us. So if we're thinking of, hey, we want to implement this specification, what are your thoughts? What's the impact to your industry? What's the impact to material producers? Because that's not our job. We're at the DOT. We need to have their input and their feedback. So that's kind of how we keep things moving along. And they definitely keep us in check if we're going down the wrong path, but it's a give and take. They may say, hey, we're willing to test drive this with you on but can you not include X, Y, or Z? And it is that compromise at the end of the day to get things started, and you continue to have that conversation. And that's kind of how we've been working things at the DOT for at least probably the past decade, is making sure we have that active communication. And, Federal Highways is with us as well. So it's not like we're not hiding anything behind closed doors. We're out in the open having those conversations and
That's
sharing
really
the
cool.
expectations.
Yeah, and you get to build on that too. And
Right.
once people see that focus and that culture that you're building, it just gives people more runway to consider those innovative options as well. And I think I've spoken to folks that have worked at organizations where they weren't given that freedom to try something new. And if they did try something new and they failed, there was a punitive thing that followed that failure. And I think it's try fast and fail fast and say, okay, that didn't work, but we can do this, and build that support structure in a way where if something doesn't go quite right, the project's still on track. You go, okay, that tech doesn't really work the way we want it to. And then you get to build on it from there. How's that shaping up in your organization?
Well, I think it's going very well, and I think it also depends on who you work with. I've been fortunate to work with the transportation engineer with Federal Highway. I got to work with them quite a bit in my past roles. Good working relationship, but at the end of the day, they really just want to make sure that we and our field staff have control over the job site. Do we have control over what those regulations are? And they don't care what it looks like really, but they want us to demonstrate this is how we're doing it, and this is why we have control. But they're very open to seeing how we want to accomplish those regulations. So when it comes to looking at payrolls, something as simple as that, are you following Davis-Bacon? Are you doing all that? Like, are you literally doing charts on a wall and you're marking off sheets on the printouts, or did you come up with something else? And then we did come up with something else where we they could log on those PDFs onto the portal that we have, and then it automatically checks against our system that we are tracking the crews, and it's a very easy check that they meet that, and so they're very supportive of that because it accomplishes what they ask. It's quicker. But what they didn't like is when we didn't do it because it was too hard. We didn't have enough people. That's sometimes what they heard from us. And so obviously they don't like hearing that. So they are very supportive when we figure out ways with technology to do these regulations, because we do have fewer people on staff. We used to have full-time people that could do that one little regulation that they asked for. But then when we lost those people, we really couldn't do it properly. And so, no, they're very supportive. Ultimately, they want to get it done, that we have a control over it. It's organized. The team's using it. And so, it makes it a lot easier that they do support that. At the end of the day, they listen and make sure that it does ultimately do what it needs to do.
I appreciate the focus there. And it sounds it's very relationships driven within your organizations and everybody you work with. And I think, construction specifically is one of the most interesting industries in that regard, because there are so many players that converge into a single project, whether you're building a building or working on a bridge or putting down roads. And the ability to bring everybody together in one of those spaces and build those relationships and work together, it's paramount to the success of a project, but it's also, I think, just paramount for humanity, for us to be able to bring these to the table in the most efficient and thoughtful way. So it sounds like both of your teams are doing some really cool stuff. And I think we've made it very clear that the perception that some may have of, some of these bigger agencies just not being innovative is absolutely not the case. And I appreciate you, helping us tell that story a little bit. I've got two final questions for both of you today. And these are a little bit more fun than where we started today as far as the serious innovation stuff. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of your favorite trends and where you think the construction industry is going to be heading in the next decade. And Kelly, I'm going to throw this one your direction first.
All right.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. So I would say some of the trends, and even that we're doing at the department right now that I'm excited about, is augmented reality, being able to bring, what's going on in the office out to the field, in the future with having that 3D model, being able to walk the projects, do constructability, maintainability, not having to wait for a designer to get out to the job site to have those conversations. So it's kind of, in my mind, critical to have that communication piece along with the AR side. So it's not separated. I know there's different technologies that may do one or the other, but having both of those together, in my mind, is critical, because it'll, timing is everything, right? If you're out in the field and you need an answer today, and that designer maybe is 2 hours away, you're not going to have time to get them out there. So being able to have that on site, to me, I think is, in my mind, is very important. But the other part that we are navigating at the department is utilizing drones for construction analytics. We're just, at the start of it. We've had a couple of pilot projects, but we've seen great results from what we've been able to see so far. And I think it'll help more from a risk-based inspection moving forward, if that is the direction the department want to go. Determining that frequency of how often you're going to fly that drone, what those comparisons are, but being able to go out and take those measurements is really cool. It's really awesome to be a part of it. Where we're going to be a decade from now, to be honest, I don't know where we're going to be 3 weeks from now. Technology is changing so much and so rapidly that 10 years from now, it could be completely different from where we are today. So I'm excited to see where it is going to be in 10 years. And, I'm hopeful that I will be able to help the department get us there, and, for a decade from now, and have those conversations and say, hey, we're here, we're a part of it, we're leading it. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where we will be in 10 years. Because again, we don't know where we're going to be even 3 weeks from now with as much as tech is changing.
I love it. In all of we had so many years of there just weren't purpose-built tools for our industry to the degree that we required and needed. And that's just had this crazy uptick now. It can be overwhelming at times, to be honest, as you look at the drones and laser scanning and everything else. But as you start stacking all these together, there's so much opportunity. And also, I think an opportunity to bring folks into the team to get them fired up. You go, hey, young people, you think construction's boring? Well, that's outrageous. Look at all these cool tools and technology that we get to use. So I love that answer. And I'm equally bullish. I don't know where we're going to go. I'm just a guy. So it's a loaded question. I appreciate your candor here. Andrew, how about you? What are you nerding out about right now? What got you excited?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. Kind of in the short term, I thought, and I kind of heard this from our contractors. I really love hearing the feedback from our partners. If you don't want to hear from me, just let the other people speak for you. And never before have they had the designers so involved in a project during construction. And it's sad that you had to hear that now, but at the same time, that trend is amazing because it has made a huge difference on the timeliness and getting the proper planning at the right time to really build that job of success. So using this technology and tools is to bring us together, bringing design more in the picture, because before it's just let's pass it off to construction and let them deal with it. But to bring them in closer, to get them more involved has been a tremendous success to have them. And then I'd say also just investing in these tools, because myself and, I'm not the future. It's the students that are in school right now that are coming. They're using these tools. They expect these tools. We need to change our culture and change the way we do business, because that's what's expected out of our future, the kids up and coming. And they're the ones that are going to make the difference and change the world, right? So it's up to us right now to make that happen. We need to invest. We need to start changing. So 10 years from now, the younger generation that's coming into the workforce can use those tools to the best that they can, and who knows what's going to happen, but if we don't get them those tools, we don't innovate, we don't change, we'll never realize what would be possible. So I really think it's, if you don't want to do it for yourself, the leaders now need to change for the future, and the students and the kids today, they grow up that way and they're going to expect it. So we owe it to them to make those changes.
I appreciate that context too. And I think there's a lot of things to be excited about on the horizon right now, whether it's regard to technology or, finding ways to bring folks into our industry and do new innovative things. And so I think, even conversations like this, we're starting to build that foundation. We're talking about it. We're highlighting that. So I appreciate that answer too. It's great perspective. So one final question for you. It's my favorite question because I get to ask everybody of it. Kelly, I got to put you back on the hot seat again. What is one tool you'll always bring to every project you work on?
Effective communication.
Ooh, I like it.
I feel that is key to be successful. If you aren't able, and it's not just, myself talking to others, it's being that active listener and getting that information back. And I feel that's the key to success for any project, is effective communication.
Good answer. I'm going to turn your mic up a little bit so everybody else can hear that one too, because I think it's the cornerstone of the work that we're doing, especially as we were talking about a minute ago, the number of players on a project. If you can't effectively communicate between all these parties, it's going to be a struggle to successfully meet your schedules, to make all of the changes you might have to make in real time if, a change order shows up, because, we never have those happen, and everything else. So I love that answer. That's great. Andrew, how about you? What's one tool you bring to every project?
I can't disagree with that one. I'm at the cheat off together there and go the same thing, effective communication. I had the opportunity to kind of, my past role to go into a project management group, less engineering. I went to school for engineering with all that, and to get their insight on how effective communication, what it really is. The project manager skills they brought, that background I got and learned from them, just kind of opened me up. It was very insightful because it showed me what I was lacking. I didn't know any better, but to see what difference that made. And to have a tool that helps facilitate that, you cannot replace it. It doesn't matter where technology is. That will always be the most important thing for these projects is effective communication. In fact, it's not even projects, it's just life in general. So yeah, I'm going to go with that as number one.
I love that. And I think it maps back to people too. You know, we can talk about technology and process all day long, but the people that are doing the work, the ones that are out there, you know, making these choices and trying to move the industry forward, I think that's that focus. That's where we really need to be. And I think communication maps directly back to that. So we're in a little 3-person echo chamber right now as far as how important communication is, but I think it's a good one to be in. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate both of your time joining me on the episode today. So of course, you're listening to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I'm coming to you live today from Autodesk University. If you enjoyed what you're hearing and you're in the sea of humanity wandering around the expo right now, you can find Autodesk Digital Builder Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Autodesk Construction Cloud's YouTube channel. We are a video first podcast. We are surrounded by cameras right now, which gets me excited. I don't know about everybody else, but you know, I think that's great. So make sure you go check that out. All of our backlog is out there to listen to. And until the next time, goodbye.